I drive a box truck through a few counties in rural Kentucky, mostly hauling feed and supplies to local farms and hardware stores. It is not glamorous, but it pays the bills, and I'm out in the quiet more than I'm in town, which suits me just fine. This morning, I was making my way down a narrow, 2-lane road not far from Munfordville, just past a stretch of pasture land and woods that barely ever sees traffic. I came around a slow bend and had to hit the brakes. 2 black labs were going at it in the middle of the road. At first I thought they were just roughhousing, until I saw what they were tugging at between them. It was a severed deer foot, lower leg, hooves and all, fresh enough to still be dark red. They were absolutely tearing each other apart for it. I laid on the horn and they bolted, but that image stuck with me the rest of the day. It brought back something I saw just a few weeks ago that gave me an uneasy feeling in my gut. There's this one farm I make deliveries to once a month, up on a ridge maybe 5 miles out from the nearest paved road. The guy who owns the place is alright, keeps to himself, pays cash, always offers me water or beef jerky when I pull up. But his driveway, if you can call it that, is a winding gravel path that cuts through trees and rolls on for almost a mile. You can't even see the house until you're practically in the front yard. I was pulling in around dusk one time. The sky had just turned that deep purple color it gets right before it's fully dark, and the fog was rolling in low from the backfields. I crested the last little hill before his place and saw 3 owls perched evenly across the fence posts along the drive. All 3 of them were just sitting there, perfectly still, like someone had placed them there on purpose. The second my headlights hit them, they all turned their heads at once toward me. Their eyes lit up like glass reflectors. I don't know what it was about that moment, but it made my scalp crawl. I've driven at night for years, seen plenty of animals, but something about the way those owls moved, like they were watching, not just looking, got to me. But none of that compares to what I saw last summer on a route through Metcalfe County. There's a dead-end road near the back edge of one of our delivery zones, mostly mobile homes and small older houses, nothing fancy. I was just finishing up a drop and heading back the way I came when I passed by this one place I always felt was a little off. The yard was always trashed. Burned furniture, broken bikes, garbage bags never picked up. But this time, as I passed, I saw a flicker in my side mirror. Then, in the space of maybe 5 seconds, the whole porch just lit up, flames jumping fast, way too fast to be accidental. I hit the brakes, reversed about 50 feet, and sure enough, the whole front of the house was catching. I could barely make out 2 figures in the yard. One of them was yelling and flailing, while the other one had a gas can in his hand and was stumbling toward a truck parked in the grass. It was the guy who lived there, and his brother. I'd seen them both before. Meth heads, according to the locals. What I did not expect was for the guy whose house was on fire to run at his brother and just start beating the ever-living hell out of him. I'm talking fists, knees, throwing him to the ground. The flames were growing behind them the whole time. I did not get out of my truck. I wasn't about to get involved in a meth family brawl, but I did call it in. A sheriff's deputy I know told me later that the guy managed to put the fire out with his garden hose before it completely torched the place. His brother got arrested, but not for arson. He got nailed for drug possession and assault. Apparently, the house fire didn't do enough damage to warrant extra charges, which is wild considering what I saw. The weirdest part? That guy still lives there. The siding is all blackened in spots, and you can still see the scorched wood around the windows. But he patched it up and just kept on living like nothing ever happened. Out here, you see things you don't really talk about. You keep driving, you mind your business. But sometimes, those images, like the dogs fighting over a deer foot, or a man beating his own brother in front of a burning house, stick with you. They don't scare you in the moment. It's later, when you're driving through the dark and realize just how alone you are, that it creeps in. My dad worked in construction most of his life, and for a long time, he shared a crew with a guy named Dennis. Dennis was a dump truck driver, one of those guys who didn't say much unless you were around him for years. My dad always said he was solid, didn't drink, always showed up on time, real straightforward guy. That's probably why this story stuck with me the way it did. It didn't sound like some drunk rambling or someone trying to scare you. It sounded like something Dennis wished he forgot. This happened back in the late 1990s, out in rural Pennsylvania. Dennis had picked up a load of gravel for a job and was headed back through a series of back roads. Real quiet, no lights for miles, mostly farmland and long stretches of nothing. He'd driven that route a bunch of times before. He knew it well. Well, it was close to midnight. No radio playing, just the hum of the engine and the occasional bump from the road. The kind of dark where even your headlights feel like they're struggling to do anything. He came up over the small hill and started down the other side. And that's when he saw it. A horse and buggy, right in the middle of the road. No reflectors, no lights, just there. Well, he did not have time to stop. He said the horse looked directly at him in that split second before impact. He hit the brakes hard, but with a full load of gravel and that kind of weight, there wasn't much he could do. He said the impact was sickening. He said it was like everything went in slow motion. The horse screaming, the sound of splintering wood, the grinding of metal, and worse, people screaming. He thought it was a man and a woman, possibly kids too. The way he described it, he was white-knuckling the wheel, hard-pounding, and he knew he had just killed a family. He came to a full stop about 40 yards down the road, shaking so bad he could barely unbuckle his seatbelt. He jumped out and ran back toward the crash. But when he did, there was nothing there. No buggy, no horse, no people, not even debris in the road. He thought maybe he had gotten turned around in the dark and was checking the wrong spot. But he walked the entire stretch. Nothing. No blood, no tire marks, not even a piece of splintered wood. He started to doubt himself. Maybe it was a hallucination. Maybe he had nodded off for a second and imagined the whole thing. But he was wide awake when it happened. His hands were still shaking, his shirt drenched in sweat. He went back to the truck and sat there for a while, trying to calm down. Eventually, he pulled himself together enough to keep driving. He made it about 15 miles down the road and saw a little all-night diner. He figured he'd step in, grab some coffee, and try to reset his nerves before heading the rest of the way to the site. Well, he said the place was empty except for a waitress behind the counter and a cook in the back. He sat at the counter and she poured him a cup of coffee without him even asking. She looked at him really carefully and asked, "You all right?" You look like you've been in a wreck or something." He hadn't told her anything yet. He said something like, "I think I hit a buggy, but I went back and there was nothing there." Her face changed a bit. Not scared, not surprised, just kind of knowing. She asked him where it happened, and he gave her the name of the road. That's when she told him. Apparently, years before, there had been a bad accident right there. A dump truck driver had come over that same hill and plowed into a buggy carrying an Amish family. It killed the horse instantly, and 2 people died right there on the road. The rest were taken to the hospital but did not make it. It was a horrible thing, had been in the paper for weeks. And ever since then, she said, every couple of years or so, someone comes in telling the exact same story Dennis had just told her. Different drivers, different trucks, same location. They all describe the same thing. Horse, buggy, screaming, and nothing there afterward. Dennis told my dad he didn't even finish his coffee. He thanked the woman and got back in his truck. He drove the long way around after that, even if it added an hour to the trip. Said he never wanted to see that road again. And for a guy like Dennis, that was saying something. I've been a truck driver for about 6 years now, and I've seen all kinds of weird stuff on the road. People pulling off to sleep in dangerous spots, drivers completely strung out, even cars flipped in ditches that nobody's stopped for yet. But there's this one thing that still sits in the back of my head every time I'm driving through the more remote stretches, especially out west. This happened in Colorado about 3 years ago. I was on a long haul from Idaho heading toward Texas. I've been driving about 11 hours straight. I know the legal limit is technically less than that, but sometimes when you're chasing delivery windows, you push it. I could feel myself getting drowsy, and I knew I needed to pull off. The last thing I wanted was to end up in a wreck because I was too proud to take a nap. I pulled off at a small truck stop just outside of Gunnison. Not much there, just a few diesel pumps, a closed-up diner, and a tiny building that looked like a local hunting supply store or something along those lines. It was just past 11 p.m., and the place was dead quiet. There were no other rigs parked there, which I found a little weird, but I was too tired to care. What really stood out was how isolated it was. The truck stop was basically surrounded by dense forest, trees thick as heck, and tall as towers. No streetlights, nothing but pitch black beyond the lot. I backed my truck into a corner spot, killed the engine, cracked the window a bit, and crawled into the sleeper. I left the privacy curtains open halfway, in case I needed to get up fast. That's just a habit I've always had. Easier to spot movement or lights that way. I fell asleep fast, probably within 10 minutes. I woke up suddenly to this loud thump, like someone had dropped a sandbag on the hood. It jolted me awake instantly. I sat up but did not make any noise. I've learned not to react loud or fast when something wakes you up in this line of work. It could be a person, an animal, or even law enforcement tapping your window. I slowly moved the curtain aside and looked up toward the windshield. It was dark, but the moonlight and my running lights gave me just enough visibility to see what was going on. There were 2 wolves sitting on my hood. Not dogs, wolves. Huge. Easily the biggest ones I've ever seen. They weren't pacing or sniffing or even moving. Just sitting there, completely still, staring directly through the glass, right at me. One was sitting up, and the other had its front paws laid flat on the hood, like it had just jumped up and decided to settle in. They didn't look curious. They looked calm, focused. I froze. I've spent a lot of time out west, and I've seen coyotes, mountain lions, even a bear once, but never anything like this. The size of them didn't register until I noticed the hood of my truck actually dip a bit under their weight. That's not something a regular dog would do. After maybe 10 seconds, felt like 10 minutes, I reached over to the center console and slammed the horn. They both jumped back fast and bolted off the hood. I did not even see which direction they went. They were just gone into the dark, like they'd never even been there. I sat there, breathing heavy, trying to convince myself I'd seen it right. I turned the headlights on, but did not see anything out there. No glowing eyes, no movement, not even prints on the windshield. But I felt the truck shake when they jumped down. Well, as you can imagine, I did not go back to sleep after that. I sat up for another hour or so, debating whether I should just keep driving. Eventually, I decided to at least get out and walk to the little convenience area that was attached to the gas station. I grabbed my .45 before stepping outside. Call it overkill, but I wasn't taking chances. The air was freezing and dead silent. Still, no other trucks had shown up, and the trees surrounding the lot somehow looked even taller in the moonlight. I walked fast. The store was closed, but they had an outdoor vending machine and a hot coffee dispenser in a weatherproof stand. The coffee was barely warm, but it gave me something to hold. When I got back into the cab, I locked everything tight and started driving again. I was super tired, but I figured if I kept the windows down and the music up, I'd make it to the next town where I could sleep more peacefully. Later, I looked up the average size of a full-grown gray wolf. It said they can weigh up to 175 pounds and stand 2.5 feet tall at the shoulder. That's about right. I still don't know what they were doing there. Hunting? Curious? Just cold and wanted somewhere warm to sit? Either way, I do not stop at that truck stop anymore.